All right, it's Tuesday, October 31st. This is an end of the day and kind of an end of the month SPY recap, last day of the month. And today, there's about 15 minutes to go in trading. I have to leave here, so I'll shoot a quick video here. I don't think it's going to change all that much, what went on today and what to look forward to. Today, we end up with another two-up day, held the midpoint of the prior day. And as I discussed, if we didn't get that two-down signal, on the daily chart, we were likely having a compound move, 1, 2, 3 bars to kind of broaden out above that bar. That was kind of the way things were heading yesterday. We didn't quite reach that target, and as long as we held the midpoint of this day and continued higher early in the session, we were likely broadening out there. We've done that, so we're in a little fair value gap between the low of that bar and the high of this bar. That could be a turning point, but we're going to have a lot of volatility tomorrow with the Fed announcement, and we will see, if things unfold back to the downside. On the weekly chart here, 2 days into the week, we're just inside of the week, so it doesn't really confirm any strong move up yet or down. And maybe, we end up with an inside bar, and then that kind of leads to certain expectations into next week. But we do have a reference point of now the open. As long as that stays green, we're a little biased to the upside until the daily chart, starts back down and maybe threatens to turn that weekly chart red and test the lows of last week. It's hard to say what's going to happen here with 3 days to go, but we'll find out a lot more tomorrow, I think. And finally, on the monthly chart, we just ended the month red here, but with a little bit of buying, that came in at the, like I said, when we came down on a 2-down month, took out that target. We did have support here, going back to that buying tail, the midpoint of it, and that's kind of where price held. And we bounced a little bit, but it's still a red bar going into next month. But the question is, did we just broaden out on this bar, and maybe do we eventually in November start up and get a 2-up month? Or, you can see resistance here at the midpoint of this thing. So there's a lot of, interesting areas here that we have reference points to really know what might be unfolding. For now, you're still biased a little bit to the downside with the red bar, but we'll have an opening price starting November 1st to kind of judge whether we're green starting out the month, or if we're green and fail, then we can be, more expecting the lows of that month to be taken out in line with the more quarterly chart, which does project down to that area. So still going to be biased to the downside, but, we kind of see some areas here that price needs to, take out one way or the other to confirm the direction. And that's kind of like today. If we go to the 15-minute chart, what unfolded today, you kind of knew, that the actionable signal was a 2-down signal. Ideally, you would have liked the pre-market lows to be somewhere near the low of that range and the opening price action to be starting down to kind of confirm the 2-down. But what happened was, between the blue lines, that was the pre-market range, opening price did start down pretty big, but you were still above the midpoint of the prior day. So anytime you have a 15-minute bar, the first one that opens up, inside of this range, my approach is that the breakout there typically will target, the pre-market high or low to start, and then you kind of have to judge what happens from there. So if you're looking at this red bar and want to aggressively get short, you're kind of expecting it to take out that low, the pre-market low, but you're also right at the midpoint of the prior day, and you need immediate follow-through to even possibly start a 2-down day, which is still pretty far away. So you're kind of watching for that. And if you get short right here, you got to kind of know the context. And in this case, you had maybe 20 minutes or so where it just wasn't following through. So you could have, if, let's say you decided to buy puts here and anticipating we're just going to get a big follow through, you could have immediately gotten out, or, given the fact that I'm looking at the midpoint of that first bar, once it went green here, you would have to take a loss. But it was kind of a very aggressive trade to begin with, because some trades kind of confirm, what's happening on the daily chart. They kind of are right there confirming the 2-down. Other ones are anticipating it, and it's just a question of how aggressive you want to be one way or the other. Maybe you don't even take that trade. Maybe you take it on a much smaller basis, knowing that it has to follow through in order to, or maybe you just take it for one bar. If it doesn't follow through, get right out. And then maybe if you would have missed it, let's say it just really followed through, then you could have, the first pullback, at least you confirmed you're past the midway point of the prior day, and you could have looked for a secondary trade, that type of thing. But anyway, it came up, and once it kind of took out the midpoint of that first bar, that was kind of a signal that you were holding this area, and you were going to probably test the highs of the day, that first bar high, which you did. And at that point, that's another kind of interesting area where you're going to fail or continue, and you kind of hit there. That's a logical pause area, but we did kind of hold in here, just the halfway point of that move up, and then we eventually attacked the pre-market highs. And again, once you kind of confirm that you weren't heading down here, you were kind of looking at this compounded target here as, on the daily chart is where you were headed. So that's why you eventually headed up, took out the pre-market highs, and then, worked a little higher from there. So we end up with a 2-up green bar that has an actionable signal again to the downside tomorrow if we can get it. But the Federal Reserve is going to cause, put a lot of volatility into price action as well. So be careful of that, especially in the afternoon. And it's a little, choppy right here after some exhaustion risk to the downside and the fact that the month is coming to an end and everything else. So we will see where things lead. But at least now, we have good reference points. We have this 2 down day. If it unfolds tomorrow, will also coincide with the open of the week. And that'll be a good negative trade. But as long as we kind of hold the midpoint of this day, we could be, you never know. We could be heading up higher. We still have room to go higher in the fair value gap. If we're going to close green here, which we have about, 10 minutes to go, you would think you test up a little higher in some fashion before failing. So for now, on the daily chart, either we get a 2 down day to confirm the downside, or we get kind of a 2 up day that then comes through the midpoint of this day to confirm the downside. And other than that, we got to still kind of stick with the short-term uptrend and then see where the Federal Reserve takes us tomorrow.